Hare Krishna. Welcome back to the live studios here in Radha Lane, right next to Sri Sri Radha Nilamadhava Mandir in ISKCON of Houston, Texas. We're going deeper into the Bhagavad-gita, and we hope you all enjoy. We'll read something from Srila Prabhupada before. It is not that because one has finished the Bhagavad-gita that he should not hear it again. The word abhikshnam is very important. We should hear again and again. There is no question of stopping. Even if one has read these topics many times, he should go on reading again and again, because Bhagavad-gita, the words spoken by Krishna and spoken by Krishna's devotees about Krishna, are amritam, nectar. The more one drinks this amritam, the more he advances in his eternal life. Srimad Bhagavatam 7.14, 3 and 4, purport. In the Shastras, the Puranas, and other Vedic literatures, there are so many narrations describing the transcendental activities of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and everyone should hear them again and again. For example, if we read the entire Bhagavad-gita every day, all 18 chapters, in each reading we shall find a new explanation. That is the nature of transcendental literature. Bhagavatam 7.14.8, purport. All right, here we go. Om Jnana Timidandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurun Militam Jena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Mano Bhishtam Stapitam Jena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Gadamayam Dadati Swapadantikam. I was born in the darkest of ignorance. I was born in the darkest ignorance. And my spiritual master opened my eyes with a torch of knowledge. I offer my respectful obeisances unto him. When will Srila Rupa Goswami Prabhupada, who was established within this material world the mission to fulfill the desire of Lord Chaitanya, give me shelter under his lotus feet? Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yuta Padakamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavams Cha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raganatan Vitam Tam Sajivam Sadvetam Savadutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakhan Vitangs Cha. I offer my respectful obeisances unto the lotus feet of my spiritual master and under the feet of all Vaishnavas. I offer my respectful obeisances under the lotus feet of Srila Rupa Goswami, along with his elder brother Sanatana Goswami, as well as Raghunath Dasa Goswami and Raghunath Bhatta, Gopala Bhatta, and Srila Jiva Goswami. I offer my respectful obeisances to Lord Shri Krishna Chaitanya and Lord Nityananda, along with Advaita Acharya, Gadadhar, Srivasa, and other associates. I offer my respectful obeisances to Srimati Radharani and Sri Krishna, along with their associates, Sri Lalita and Vishaka. Hey Krishna, Karuna Sindho, Dinabandho Jagatpate, Gopisha Gopika Kanta, Radha Kanta Namostute. My dear Krishna, ocean of mercy, you are the friend of the distressed and the source of creation. You are the master of the cowherd men and the lover of the gopis, especially Srimati Radharani. I offer my respectful obeisances unto you. Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanu Sute Divi Pranamami Hari Priye. I offer my respects to Radharani, whose bodily complexion is like molten gold, and who is the queen of Vrindavan. You are the daughter of King Vrishabhanu, and you are very dear to Lord Krishna. Vanchakalpatarubhyascha kripa sindubhya evacha patitanam pavanebhyo vaishnavebhyo namo namaha. I offer my respectful obeisances unto all the Vaishnava devotees of the Lord. They can fulfill the desires of everyone, just like desired trees, and they are full of compassion for the fallen, conditioned souls. Jai Krishna Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadara Shivasari Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. Hare Krishna. I offer my obeisances to Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadara Shivas and all others in the line of devotion. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. So now, Krishna is beginning his teachings. He's already kind of chastised a little bit Arjuna for lamenting, symptom of somebody who's not in knowledge is they tend to lament when things aren't necessary for lamentation. But now he's going to get into the teachings. Bhagavad-gita, as it is, chapter 2, beginning with text 13. Dehinosmin yata dehe komadam yovanam jada tata dehantada praptir didas tatra namuyati. As the embodied soul continuously passes in this body from boyhood to youth to old age, the soul similarly passes into another body at death. A sober person is not bewildered by such a change. Purport. Since every living entity is an individual soul, each is changing his body every moment, manifesting sometimes as a child, sometimes as a youth, and sometimes as an old man. Yet the same spirit soul is there and does not undergo any change. This individual soul finally changes the body at death and transmigrates to another body. And since it is sure to have another body in the next life, either material or spiritual, there was no cause for lamentation by Arjuna on account of death, neither for Bhishma, nor for Drona, nor for whom he was so much concerned. Rather, he should rejoice for their changing bodies from old to new ones, thereby rejuvenating their energy. Such changes of body account for varieties of enjoyment or suffering according to one's work in life. So Bhishma and Drona, being noble souls, were surely going to have spiritual bodies in the next life, or at least life in heavenly bodies, for superior enjoyment of material existence. So, in either case, there was no cause of lamentation. Any man who has perfect knowledge of the constitution of the individual soul, the supersoul, and nature, both material and spiritual, is called a dhira, or a most sober man. Such a man is never deluded by the change of bodies. The Mayavadi theory of oneness of the spirit soul cannot be entertained on the ground that the spirit soul cannot be cut into pieces as a fragmental portion. Such cutting into different individual souls would make the supreme cleavable or changeable against the principle of the Supreme Lord souls being unchangeable. As confirmed in the Gita, the fragmental portions of the Supreme exist eternally, sanatana, and are called chada. That is, they have a tendency to fall down into material nature. These fragmental portions are eternally so, and even after liberation, the individual soul remains the same, fragmental. But once liberated, he lives an eternal life in bliss and knowledge with the personality of Godhead. The theory of reflection can be applied to the Supersoul, who is present in each and every individual body and is known as the Paramatma. He is different from the individual living entity. When the sky is reflected in water, the reflections represent both the sun and the moon and the stars also. The stars can be compared to the living entities, and the sun or the moon to the Supreme Lord. The individual, fragmental spirit soul is represented by Arjuna, and the Supreme Soul is the personality of Godhead, Sri Krishna. They are not on the same level, as it will be apparent in the beginning of the 4th chapter. If Arjuna is on the same level with Krishna, and Krishna is not superior to Arjuna, then their relationship of instructor and instructed becomes meaningless. If both of them are deluded by the illusory energy Maya, then there is no need of one being the instructor and the other the instructed. Such instruction would be useless because, in the clutches of Maya, no one can be an authoritative instructor. Under the circumstances, it is admitted that Lord Krishna is the Supreme Lord, superior in position to the living entity. Arjuna, who is a forgetful soul, deluded by Maya. Text 14. Okay. Matra sparshasta konteya shitoshna sukadukada agama payino nityas tongues tatikshas bharata. O son of Kunti, the non-permanent appearance of happiness and distress and their disappearance in due course are like the appearance and disappearance of winter and summer seasons. They arise from sense perception, O scion of Bharata, and one must learn to tolerate them without being disturbed. Purport. In the proper discharge of duty, one has to learn to tolerate non-permanent appearances and disappearances of happiness and distress. According to Vedic injunction, one has to take his bath early in the morning, even during the month of Magh, January, February. It is very cold at that time, but in spite of that, a man who abides by the religious principles does not hesitate to take his bath. Similarly, a woman does not hesitate to cook in the kitchen in the months of May and June, the hottest part of the summer season. One has to execute his duty in spite of climatic inconveniences. Similarly, to fight is the religious principle of the Kshatriyas, and although one has to fight with some friend or relative, and although one has to fight with some friend or relative, one should not deviate from his prescribed duty. One has to follow the prescribed rules and regulations of religious principles in order to rise up to the platform of knowledge. Because by knowledge and devotion only can one liberate himself from the clutches of Maya, illusion. The two different names of address given to Arjuna are also significant. To address him as Kontiya signifies his great blood relations from his mother's side, and to address him as Bharata signifies his greatness from his father's side. From both sides, he is supposed to have a great heritage. A great heritage brings responsibility in the matter of proper discharge of duties. Therefore, he cannot avoid fighting. Text 15. Yam hina vyatayantyete purusham purusharshaba samadukha sukham dhiram somritat vaya kalpate. O best among men, Arjuna, the person who is not disturbed by happiness and distress and is steady in both is certainly eligible for liberation. Purport. Anyone who is steady in his determination for the advanced stage of spiritual realization and can equally tolerate the onslaughts of distress and happiness is certainly a person eligible for liberation. In the Varnashrama institution, the fourth stage of life, namely the renounced order, sannyas, is a painstaking situation. But one who is serious about making his life perfect surely adopt the sannyas order of life, in spite of all difficulties. The difficulties usually arise from having to sever family relationships, to give up the connection of wife and children. But if anyone is able to tolerate such difficulties, surely his path to spiritual realization is complete. Similarly, in Arjuna's discharge of duties as a Kshatriya, he is advised to persevere, even if it is difficult to fight with his family members or similarly beloved persons. Lord Chaitanya took sannyas at the age of 24, and his dependents, young wife as well as old mother, had no one else to look after them. Yet for a higher cause, he took sannyas and was steady in the discharge of higher duties. That is the way of achieving liberation from material bondage. Text 16. Nasato vijite bhavo, na bhavo vijite sataha, ubayor abhidrishnontas tvaniyos tattvadarshibhihi. Those who are seers of the truth, have concluded that of the non-existent, the material body, there is no endurance, and of the eternal, the soul, there is no change. This they have concluded by studying the nature of both. Purport. There is no endurance of the changing body, that the body is changing every moment by the actions and reactions of the different cells is admitted by modern medical science, and thus growth and old age are taking place in the body. But the spirit soul exists permanently, remaining the same despite all changes of the body and the mind. That is the difference between matter and spirit. By nature, the body is ever-changing, and the soul is eternal. This conclusion is established by all classes of seers of the truth, both impersonalist and personalist. In the Vishnu Purana 2.12.38, it is stated that Vishnu and his abodes all have self-illuminated spiritual existence. Jyotingshi Vishnu Bhuvani, Vishnu. The words existent and non-existent refer only to spirit and matter. That is the version of all seers of truth. This is the beginning of the instruction of by the Lord to the living entities who are bewildered by the influence of ignorance. Removal of ignorance involves the re-establishment of the eternal relationship between the worshipper and the worshipable, and the consequent understanding of the difference between the part and parcel living entities and the Supreme Personality of Godhead. One can understand the nature of the Supreme by thorough study of oneself, the difference between oneself and the Supreme being understood as the relationship between the part and the whole. In the Vedanta Sutras, as well as in the Srimad Bhagavatam, the Supreme has been accepted as the origin of all emanations. Such emanations are experienced by superior and inferior natural sequences. The living entities belong to the superior nature, as it will be revealed in the 7th chapter. Although there is no difference between the energy and the energetic is accepted as the supreme, and the energy or nature is accepted as the subordinate. The living entities, therefore, are always subordinate to the Supreme Lord, as in the case of the master and the servant, or teacher and the taught. Such clear knowledge is impossible to understand under the spell of ignorance. And to drive away such ignorance, the Lord teaches the Bhagavad-gita for the enlightenment of all living entities for all time. Text 17. Avinashi tu tad vidi yena sarvamidang tatam vinasham avyayasyasya na kaschit kartam ardati. That which pervades the entire body you should know to be indestructible. No one is able to destroy that imperishable soul. Purport. This verse more clearly explains the real nature of the soul, which is spread all over the body. Anyone can understand what is spread all over the body. It is consciousness. Everyone is conscious of the pains and pleasures of the body, in part or as a whole. This spreading of consciousness is limited within one's own body. The pains and pleasures of one body are unknown to another. Therefore, each and every body is the embodiment of an individual soul, and the symptom of the soul's presence is perceived as individual consciousness. This soul is described as 1/10,000th part of the upper portion of the hair point in size. The Shvetashvatara Upanishad 5.9 confirms this. Balag Rashatabhagasya Shatada Kalpitasya Cha Bhago Jivak Sivigyeya Sachanantaya Kalpate. When the upper point of a hair is divided into 100 parts, and again each of such parts is further divided into 100 parts, each such part is the measurement of the dimension of the soul. Similarly, the same version is stated. Keshagra Shatabhagasya Shatangsha Sadrishatmakaha Jiva Sukshma Surupo Yam Shankyati To Hichitkanaha. There are innumerable particles of spiritual atoms which are measured as 1/10,000th of the upper portion of the hair. Therefore, the individual particle of spirit soul is a spiritual atom smaller than the material atoms, and such atoms are innumerable. This very small spiritual spark is the basic principle of the material body, and the influence of such a spiritual spark is spread all over the body as the influence of the active principle of some medicine spreads throughout the body. This current of the spirit soul is felt all over the body as consciousness, and that is the proof of the presence of the soul. Any layman can understand that the material body minus consciousness is a dead body, and this consciousness cannot be revived in the body by any means of material administration. Therefore, consciousness is not due to any amount of material combination, but to the spirit soul. In the Mundaka Upanishad 3.1.9, the measurement of the atomic spirit soul is further explained. Esho nur atma chetasa viditavyo yasmin pranak panchada sangvivesha pranais chittam sarvam otam prajanam yasmin vishuddhe vibhavat yesha atma. The soul is atomic in size and can be perceived by perfect intelligence. This atomic soul is floating in the 5 kinds of air, prana, apana, dhyana, samana, and udana, is situated within the heart and spreads its influence all over the body of the embodied living entities. When the soul is purified from the contamination of the 5 kinds of material air, its spiritual influence is exhibited. The Hatha Yoga system is meant for controlling the 5 kinds of air encircling the pure soul by different kinds of sitting postures, not for any material profit, but for the liberation of the minute soul from the entanglement of the material atmosphere. So the constitution of the atomic soul is admitted in all Vedic literatures, and it is also actually felt in the practical experience of any sane man. Only the insane man can think of this atomic soul as all-pervading, Vishnu Tattva. The influence of the atomic soul can be spread all over a particular body. According to the Mundaka Upanishad, this atomic soul is situated in the heart of every living entity, and because the measurement of the atomic soul is beyond the power of appreciation of the material scientists, some of them foolishly assert that there is no soul. The individual atomic soul is definitely there, in the heart, along with the supersoul, and thus all the energies of bodily movement are emanating from this part of the body. The corpuscles, which carry the oxygen from the lungs, gather energy from the soul. When the soul passes away from this position, the activity of the blood generating fusion ceases. Medical science accepts the importance of red corpuscles, but it cannot ascertain that the source of the energy is the soul. Medical science, however, does admit that the heart is the seat of all energies of the body. Such atomic particles of the spirit soul are compared to the sunshine molecules. In the sunshine, there are innumerable radiant molecules. Similarly, the fragmental parts of the Supreme Lord are atomic sparks of the rays of the Supreme Lord, called by the name Prabha, or superior energy. So whether one follows Vedic knowledge or modern science, one cannot deny the existence of the spirit soul in the body, and the science of the soul is explicitly described in the Bhagavad-gita by the personality of Godhead himself. Text 18. Antavanta ime deha nityasyukta sharirinaha anashino prameyasya tasmat yujyasya bharata. The material body of the indestructible, immeasurable, and eternal living entity is sure to come to an end. Therefore, fight, O descendant of Bharata. Purport. The material body is perishable by nature. It may perish immediately, or it may do so after 100 years. It is a question of time only. There is no chance of maintaining it indefinitely. But the spirit soul is so minute that it cannot even be seen by an enemy, to say nothing of being killed. As mentioned in the previous verse, it is so small that no one can have any idea how to measure its dimension. So from both viewpoints, there is no cause of lamentation, because the living entity, as he is, cannot be killed, nor can the material body be saved for any length of time or permanently protected. The minute particle of the whole spirit acquires this material body according to its work, and therefore observance of religious principles should be utilized. In the Vedanta Sutras, the living entity is qualified as light because he is part and parcel of the supreme light. As sunlight maintains the entire universe, so the light of the soul maintains this material body. As soon as the spirit soul is out of this material body, the body begins to decompose. Therefore, it is the spirit soul which maintains this body. The body itself is unimportant. Arjuna was advised to fight and not sacrifice the cause of religion for material, bodily considerations. Text 19. Ya enam vitihantaram yaschainam manyate hatam ubau tau navijanito nayam hanti nahanyate. Neither he who thinks the living entity the slayer, nor he who thinks it slain is in knowledge, for the self slays not, nor is slain. Purport. When an embodied living entity is hurt by fatal weapons, it is to be known that the living entity within the body is not killed. The spirit soul is so small that it is impossible to kill him by any material weapon, as will be evident from subsequent verses. Nor is the living entity killable because of his spiritual constitution. What is killed, or is supposed to be killed, is the body only. This, however, does not at all encourage killing of the body. The Vedic injunction is ma hing syat sarvabhutani. Never commit violence to anyone, nor does understanding that the living entity is not killed encourage animal slaughter. Killing the body of anyone without authority is abominable and is punishable by the law of the state as well as by the law of the Lord. Arjuna, however, is being engaged in killing for the principle of religion and not whimsically. Text 20. Najayate mriyate bhakadachin nayam bhutva bhavita vanabhuyaha ajo nityak shastato yam purano nahanyate hanyamane sharire. For the soul there is neither birth nor death at any time. He has not come into being, does not come into being, and will not come into being. He is unborn, eternal, ever-existing, and primeval. He is not slain when the body is slain. Purport. Qualitatively, the small atomic fragmental part of the Supreme Spirit is one with the Supreme. He undergoes no changes like the body. Sometimes the soul is called the steady or kutastha. The body is subject to 6 kinds of transformations. It takes its birth from the womb of the mother's body, remains for some time, grows, produces some effects, gradually dwindles, and at last vanishes into oblivion. The soul, however, does not go through such changes. The soul is not born, but because it takes on a material body, the body takes its birth. The soul does not take birth there, and the soul does not die. Anything which has birth also has death. And because the soul has no birth, he therefore has no past, present, or future. He is eternal, ever-existing, and primeval. That is, there is no trace in history of his coming into being. Under the impression of the body, we seek the history of birth, and so on, of the soul. The soul does not at any time become old, as the body does. The so-called old man, therefore, feels himself to be in the same spirit as in his childhood or youth. The changes of the body do not affect the soul. The soul does not deteriorate like a tree or anything material. The soul has no byproduct either. The byproducts of the body, namely children, are also different individual souls. And owing to the body, they appear as children of a particular man. The body develops because of the soul's presence, but the soul has neither offshoots nor change. Therefore, the soul is free from the 6 changes of the body. In the Katha Upanishad 1-18, we also find a similar passage which reads, Najayate mriyate va pipaschin, nayam kutaschin, na babuvakaschit, ajo nikyak shasato yam purano, nahanyate hanyamane sharire. The meaning and purport of this verse is the same as in the Bhagavad-gita. But here in this verse there is one special word, pipaschit, which means learned or with knowledge. The soul is full of knowledge, or full always with consciousness. Therefore, consciousness is the symptom of the soul. Even if one does not find the soul within the heart, where he is situated, one can still understand the presence of the soul simply by the presence of consciousness. Sometimes we do not find the sun in the sky, or owing to clouds, or for some other reason, but the light of the sun is always there. And if we are convinced that it is therefore, and we are convinced that it is therefore daytime, as soon as there is a little light in the sky, early in the morning, we can understand that the sun is in the sky. Similarly, since there is some consciousness in all bodies, whether man or animal, we can understand the presence of the soul. This consciousness of the soul is, however, different from the consciousness of the Supreme, because the Supreme Consciousness is all-knowing, or all-knowledge, past, present, and future. The consciousness of the individual soul is prone to be forgetful. When he is forgetful of his real nature, he obtains education and enlightenment from the superior lessons of Krishna. But Krishna is not like the forgetful soul. If so, Krishna's teachings of Bhagavad-gita would be useless. There are two kinds of souls, namely the minute particle soul, Anu-atma, and the super-soul, Vibhu-atma. This is also confirmed in the Katha Upanishad 1-20 in this way: Anor aniyan mahato mahiyan atmasya jantor nihito ruhayam tam akratu pashyati vita shoko dhatu prasadan mahimanam atmanaha. Both the super soul, Paramatma, and the atomic soul, Jivatma, are situated on the same tree of the body, within the same heart of the living being. And only one who has become free from all material desires, as well as lamentations, can, by the grace of the Supreme, understand the glories of the soul. Krishna is the fountainhead of the super-soul also, as it will be disclosed in the following chapters. And Arjuna is the atomic soul, forgetful of his real nature. Therefore he requires to be enlightened by Krishna, or by his bona fide representative, the spiritual master. Text 21. Vida vinashinam nityam ya'inam ajamavyayam katam sa purushak partha kam gatiyati hantikam. So, a new soul has come in yet? Not yet?
They're working on that right now. Actually.
That's what I was thinking. Maybe you walked in a new grandfather or something. We're just talking about it in this chapter.
Say your prayers.
Vida vinashinam nityam ya'inam ajamavyayam katam sa purushak partha kam gatayati hantikam. O Partha, how can a person who knows that the soul is indestructible, eternal, unborn, and immutable kill anyone or cause anyone to kill? Purport. Everything has its proper utility, and a man who is situated in complete knowledge knows how and where to apply a thing for its proper utility. Similarly, violence also has its utility, and how to apply violence rests with the person in knowledge. Although the justice of the peace awards capital punishment to a person condemned for murder, the justice of the peace cannot be blamed, because he orders violence to another person according to the codes of justice. In Manu Samhita, the law book for mankind, it is supported that a murderer should be condemned to death, so that in his next life he will not have to suffer for the great sin he has committed. Therefore, the king's punishment of hanging a murderer is actually beneficial. Similarly, when Krishna orders fighting, it must be concluded that violence is for the supreme justice. And thus Arjuna should follow the instruction, knowing well that such violence committed in the act of fighting for Krishna is not violence at all, because at any rate, the man, or rather the soul, cannot be killed. So for the administration of justice, so-called violence is permitted. A surgical operation is not meant to kill the patient, but to cure him. Therefore, the fighting to be executed by Arjuna at the instruction of Krishna is with full knowledge, so there is no possibility of sinful reaction. Text 22. Vasangsi jirnani yatha vihaya navani grinati naroparani tata sharirani vihaya jirnani anyani sangyati navani dehi. As a person puts on new garments, giving up old ones, the soul similarly accepts new material bodies, giving up the old and useless ones. Purport. Change of body by the atomic individual soul is an accepted fact. Even the modern scientists who do not believe in the existence of the soul, but at the same time cannot explain the source of energy from the heart, have to accept continuous changes of body, which appear from childhood to boyhood, and from boyhood to youth, and again from youth to old age. From old age, the change is transferred to another body. This has already been explained in a previous verse. Transference of the atomic individual soul to another body is made possible by the grace of the Supersoul. The Supersoul fulfills the desire of the atomic soul, as one friend fulfills the desire of another. The Vedas, like the Mundaka Upanishad, as well as the Shvetashvatara Upanishad, compare the soul and the Supersoul to two friendly birds sitting on the same tree. One of the birds, the individual, atomic soul, is eating the fruit of the tree, and the other bird, Krishna, is simply watching his friend. Of these two birds, although they are the same in quality, one is captivated by the fruits of the material tree, while the other is simply witnessing the activities of his friend. Krishna is the witnessing bird, and Arjuna is the eating bird. Although they are friends, one is still the master, and the other is the servant. Forgetfulness of this relationship by the atomic soul is the cause of one's changing his position from one tree to another, or from one body to another. The jiva soul is struggling very hard on the tree of the material body, but as soon as he agrees to accept the other bird as the supreme spiritual master, as Arjuna agreed to do by voluntary surrender unto Krishna for instruction, the subordinate bird immediately becomes free from all lamentations. Both the Mundaka Upanishad 3.1.2 and the Shvetashvatara Upanishad 4.7 confirm this. Samani vrikshe purusho nimagno nishchaya shochati muyamanaha jushtam yada paschat yan anyamisham asya mahimanamiti vitashoka. Although the two birds are in the same tree, the eating bird is fully engrossed with anxiety and moroseness as the enjoyer of the fruits of the tree. But if in some way or other he turns his face to his friend, who is the Lord, and knows his glories, at once the suffering bird becomes free from all anxieties. Arjuna has now turned his face towards his eternal friend, Krishna, and is understanding the Bhagavad-gita from him. And thus, hearing from Krishna, he can understand the supreme glories of the Lord and be free from lamentation. Arjuna is advised herewith by the Lord not to lament for the bodily change of his old grandfather and his teacher. He should rather be happy to kill their bodies in the righteous fight, so that they may be cleansed at once of all reactions from various bodily activities. One who lays down his life on the sacrificial altar or in the proper battlefield is at once cleansed of bodily reactions and promoted to a higher status of life. So there was no cause for Arjuna's lamentation. Text 23. Nainam chindati shastrani nainam dahati pavakaha nachainam klediyantyapo nasho shayati marata. The soul can never be cut to pieces by any weapon, nor burned by fire, nor moistened by water, nor withered by the wind. Purport. All kinds of weapons, swords, flame weapons, rain weapons, tornado weapons, and so on, are unable to kill the spirit soul. It appears that there were many kinds of weapons made of earth, water, air, ether, and so on, in addition to the modern weapons of fire. Even the nuclear weapons of the modern age are classified as fire weapons. But formerly there were other weapons made of all different types of material elements. Firearms were counteracted by water weapons, which are now unknown to modern science. Nor do modern scientists have knowledge of tornado weapons. Nonetheless, the soul can never be cut into pieces, nor annihilated by any number of weapons, regardless of scientific devices. The Mayavadi cannot explain how the individual soul came into existence simply by ignorance and consequently became covered by the illusory energy. Nor was it ever possible to cut the individual souls from the original Supreme Soul. Rather, the individual souls are eternally separated parts of the Supreme Soul. Because they are atomic individual souls eternally, Sanatana, they are prone to be covered by the illusory energy, and thus they become separated from the association of the Supreme Lord, just as the sparks of a fire, although one in quality with the fire, are prone to be extinguished when out of the fire. In the Varaha Purana, the living entities are described as separated parts and parcels of the Supreme. They are eternally so, according to the Bhagavad-gita also. So even after being liberated from illusion, the living entity remains a separate entity, as is evident from the teachings of the Lord to Arjuna. Arjuna became liberated by the knowledge received from Krishna, but he never became one with Krishna. Text 24. Hare Krishna, Haribo. Achedyo yam adhayo yam akleshyo shosha evacha nityak sarvakatak stanur achaloyam sanatanaha. This individual soul is unbreakable and insoluble, and can be neither burned nor dried. He is everlasting, present everywhere, unchangeable, immovable, and eternally the same. Purport. All these qualifications of the atomic soul definitely prove that the individual soul is eternally the atomic particle of the spirit whole, and he remains the same atom eternally without change. The theory of monism. Siri thinks that I'm talking about her, monism. The theory of monism is very difficult to apply in this case, because the individual soul is never expected to become one homogeneously. After liberation from material contamination, the atomic soul may prefer to remain as a spiritual spark in the effulgent rays of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. But the intelligent souls enter into the spiritual planets to associate with the Personality of Godhead. The word sarvakata, all-pervading, is significant because there is no doubt that living entities are all over God's creation. They live on the land, in the water, in the air, within the earth, and even within fire. The belief that they are sterilized in fire is not acceptable, because it is clearly stated here that the soul cannot be burned by fire. Therefore, there is no doubt that there are living entities also in the sun planet with suitable bodies to live there. If the sun globe is uninhabited, then the word sarvagata, living everywhere, becomes meaningless. Text 25. Avyakto yam achintyo yam avikaryo yamuchyate tasmat evam vidit mainam nanu shochitavadasi. It is said that the soul is invisible, inconceivable, and immutable. Knowing this, you should not grieve for the body. Purport. As described previously, the magnitude of the soul is so small for our material calculation that he cannot be seen even by the most powerful microscope. Therefore, he is invisible. As far as the soul's existence is concerned, no one can establish his existence experimentally beyond the proof of Shruti, or Vedic wisdom. We have to accept this truth because there is no other source of understanding the existence of the soul, although it is a fact by perception. There are many things we have to accept solely on grounds of superior authority. No one can deny the existence of his father based on the authority of his mother. There is no source of understanding the identity of the father except by the authority of the mother. Similarly, there is no source of understanding the soul except by studying the Vedas. In other words, the soul is inconceivable by human experimental knowledge. The soul is consciousness and conscious. That also is the statement of Vedas, and we have to accept that. Unlike the bodily changes, there is no change in the soul. As eternally unchangeable, the soul remains atomic in comparison to the infinite Supreme Soul. The Supreme Soul is infinite, and the atomic soul is infinitesimal. Therefore, the infinitesimal soul, being unchangeable, can never become equal to the infinite soul, or the Supreme Personality of Godhead. This concept is repeated in the Vedas in different ways just to confirm the stability of the conception of the soul. Repetition of something is necessary in order that we understand the matter thoroughly, without error. And therefore in the Srimad Bhagavatam and in all the other scriptures, from time to time you have the same teaching repeated again and again in different historical circumstances, where people lose loved ones, or there's a war or whatever, and everyone becomes completely confused, and then some spiritual teacher or Krishna himself comes and speaks the same knowledge again and again. Because over time, we all forget. We all have to be reminded. And when we are reminded, and we do actually remember, we become relieved from anxiety. Okay. Text 25? 26. Atat chainam nityajatam nityam va manyase mritam tatapi tvam mahabaho nainam shochitamarasi. If, however, you think that the soul or the symptoms of life are always born and dies forever, you still have no reason to lament, O mighty armed. Purport. There is always a class of philosophers, almost akin to the Buddhists, who do not believe in the separate existence of the soul beyond the body. When Lord Krsna spoke the Bhagavad-gita, it appears that such philosophers existed, and they were known as the Lokayatikas and Vaibhashikas. Such philosophers maintain that life symptoms take place at a certain mature condition of material combination. The modern material scientists and materialist philosophers also think similarly. According to them, the body is a combination of physical elements, and at a certain stage, the life symptoms develop by interaction of the physical and chemical elements. The science of anthropology is based on this philosophy. Currently, many pseudo-religions, now becoming fashionable in America, are also adhering to this philosophy, as are the nihilistic, non-devotional Buddhist sects. Even if Arjuna did not believe in the existence of the soul, as in the Vaibhashika philosophy, there would still have been no cause for lamentation. No one laments the loss of a certain bulk of chemicals and stops discharging his prescribed duty. On the other hand, in modern science and scientific warfare, so many tons of chemicals are wasted for achieving victory over the enemy. According to the Vaibhashika philosophy, Vaibhashika philosophy, the so-called soul or Atma vanishes along with the deterioration of the body. So in any case, whether Arjuna accepted the Vedic conclusion that there is an atomic soul, or he did not believe in the existence of the soul, he had no reason to lament. According to this theory, since there are so many living entities generating out of matter every moment, and so many of them are being vanquished every moment, there is no need to grieve for such incidents. If there were no rebirth for the soul, Arjuna had no reason to be afraid of being affected by sinful reactions due to his killing his grandfather and teacher. But at the same time, Krishna sarcastically addressed Arjuna as Mahabaho, mighty armed, because he at least did not accept the theory of the Vaibhashikas, which leaves aside the Vedic wisdom. As a Kshatriya, Arjuna belonged to the Vedic culture, and it behooved him to continue to follow its principles. Text 27. Jatasya hi dhruvo mrityur dhruvam janma mritasya cha tasmad pariharyarte natum shochitamadasi. One who has taken his birth is sure to die, and after death, one is sure to take birth again. Therefore, in the unavoidable discharge of your duty, you should not lament. Purport. One has to take birth according to one's activities of life. And after finishing one term of activities, one has to die to take birth for the next. In this way, one is going through one cycle of birth and death after another without liberation. This cycle of birth and death does not, however, support unnecessary murder, slaughter, and war. But at the same time, violence and war are inevitable factors in human society for keeping law and order. The Battle of Kurukshetra, being the will of the Supreme, was an inevitable event, and to fight for the right cause is the duty of a Kshatriya. Why should Arjuna be afraid of or aggrieved at the death of his relatives, since he was discharging his proper duty? He did not deserve to break the law, thereby becoming subjected to the reactions of sinful acts of which he was so afraid. By avoiding the discharge of his proper duty, he would not be able to stop the death of his relatives, and he would be degraded due to his selection of the wrong path of action. Text 28. Yavyakta dini bhutani vyakta madhyani bharata avyakta nidinanyeva tatrika paridevana. All created beings are manifest in their beginning, manifest in their interim state, and unmanifest again when annihilated. So what need is there for lamentation? Purport. Accepting that there are two classes of philosophers, one believing in the existence of the soul, and the other not believing in the existence of the soul, there is no cause for lamentation in either case. Non-believers in the existence of the soul are called atheists by followers of Vedic wisdom. Yet even if, for argument's sake, we accept this atheistic theory, there is still no cause for lamentation. Apart from the separate existence of the soul, the material elements remain unmanifested before creation. From this subtle state of non-manifestation comes manifestation. Just as from ether, air is generated. From air, fire is generated. From fire, water is generated. And from water, earth becomes manifested. From the earth, many varieties of manifestations take place. Take, for example, a big skyscraper manifested from the earth. When it is dismantled, the manifestation becomes again unmanifested and remains as atoms in the ultimate stage. The law of conservation of energy remains, but in course of time, things are manifested and unmanifested. That is the difference. Then what cause is there for lamentation, either in the stage of manifestation or in unmanifestation? Somehow or other, even in the unmanifested stage, things are not lost. Both at the beginning and at the end, all elements remain unmanifested, and only in the middle are they manifested, and this does not make any real material difference. And if we accept the Vedic conclusion, as stated in the Bhagavad-gita, that these material bodies are perishable in due course of time, antavanta, ime deha, but that the soul is eternal, nityas yokta, sharirinaha, then we must remember always that the body is like a dress. Therefore, why lament the changing of a dress? The material body has no factual existence in relation to the eternal soul. It is something like a dream. In a dream, we may think of flying in the sky or sitting on a chariot as a king, but when we wake up, we can see that we are neither in the sky nor seated on the chariot. The Vedic wisdom encourages self-realization on the basis of the non-existence of the material body. Therefore, in either case, whether one believes in the existence of the soul or one does not believe in the existence of the soul, there is no cause for lamentation for loss of the body. Text 29. Ascharyavat pashyati kaschideenam ascharyavat vadati tathaiva chanyak ascharyavat chinamanyak shinoti shutvapenam venanachaiva kaschit. Some look on the soul as amazing, some describe him as amazing, and some hear of him as amazing, while others, even after hearing about him, cannot understand him at all. Purport. Since Gita Upanishad is largely based on the principles of the Upanishads, it is not surprising to also find this passage in the Katha Upanishad. Shravanayapi bahubir yonalabhya shrinvato pibabho yam vidyu ascharyo bhakta kushalosya labda ascharyosya yat kusha nushishtaha. The fact that the atomic soul is within the body of a gigantic animal, in the body of a gigantic banyan tree, and also in the microbic germs, millions and billions of which occupy only an inch of space, is certainly very amazing. Men with a poor fund of knowledge, and men who are not austere, cannot understand the wonders of the individual atomic spark of spirit, even though it is explained by the greatest authority of knowledge, who imparted lessons even to Brahma, the first living being in the universe. Owing to a gross material conception of things, most men in this age cannot imagine how such a small particle can become both so great and so small. So men look at the soul proper as wonderful, either by constitution or by description. Illusioned by the material energy, people are so engrossed in subject matters for sense gratification that they have very little time to understand the question of self-understanding, even though it is a fact that without this self-understanding, all activities result in ultimate defeat in the struggle for existence. Perhaps they have no idea that one must think of the soul and thus make a solution to the material miseries. Some people who are inclined to hear about the soul may be attending lectures in good association, but sometimes, owing to ignorance, they are misguided by acceptance of the supersoul and the atomic soul as one, without distinction of magnitude. It is very difficult to find a man who perfectly understands the position of the supersoul, the atomic soul, their respective functions and relationships, and all other major and minor details. And it is still more difficult to find a man who has actually derived full benefit from knowledge of the soul, and who is able to describe the position of the soul in different aspects. But if, somehow or other, one is able to understand the subject matter of the soul, then one's life is successful. The easiest process for understanding the subject matter of self, however, is to accept the statements of the Bhagavad-gita spoken by the greatest authority, Lord Krsna, without being deviated by other theories. But it also requires a great deal of penance and sacrifice, either in this life or in the previous ones, before one is able to accept Krishna as the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Krishna can, however, might be known as such by the causeless mercy of the pure devotee and by no other way. So now we have a summary of this section that we just heard, all about the details of the qualities of the soul, the constitution of the soul, the relation of the soul to the body, and so forth. This next verse is a summary of that whole section. Dehi nityam avadyoyam dehi sarvasya bharata tasmat sarvani bhutani natvam shochitamarasi. O descendant of Bharata, he who dwells in the body can never be slain. Therefore, you need not grieve for any living being. Purport. The Lord now concludes the chapter of instruction on the immutable spirit soul. In describing the immortal soul in various ways, Lord Krsna establishes that the soul is immortal and the body is temporary. Therefore, Arjuna, as a Kshatriya, should not abandon his duty out of fear that his grandfather and teacher, Bhishma and Drona, will die in the battle. On the authority of Sri Krishna, one has to believe that there is a soul different from the material body, not that there is no such thing as soul, or that living symptoms develop at a certain stage of material maturity resulting from the interaction of chemicals. Though the soul is immortal, violence is not encouraged, but at the time of war, it is not discouraged when there is actual need for it. That need must be justified in terms of the sanction of the Lord and not capriciously. Hare Krishna. So we'll stop here. We finished one whole section of the teachings, and we'll begin tomorrow. Any reflections? Any questions? Any comments? Yes. Bhakti John. Have a go.
I just got back from the doctor, and I'm thinking, I was thinking earlier, when you're faced with your own mortality, you don't really think about it that much, but when you think about it, it's like, oh, I'm ready. But when it comes to face it,
right down to it,
it's like, oh, I'm not really ready as I thought I was. I was thinking, like, what happens if you have to face it after you walk out the door, or right as you're driving in the car? How do you know that you're going to go back to Godhead if you've never taken any kind of religious order or anything like that?
You don't. That's why it's good to take some kind of religious instruction.
I mean, if you can chant Hare Krishna and hope you end up in a human body, maybe.
Well, it's like this. It's not impersonal. This is the whole point of this teaching. It's not some kind of mechanical, impersonal situation. The super soul is a person.
Well, you can talk to Krishna, right? I mean, do you have that kind of personal relationship with Krishna?
We all do.
Okay.
We all do. Some
Like you
know,
say,
some.
God, I need to talk to you, really, about this.
Yes, you can, but you have to be qualified to
Right.
talk direct. But Krishna's always trying to give us instructions. That's what conscience is. Conscious. That twinge. You're about to do something and you get this feeling inside. Nah, I don't think you should do that.
No.
Remember the last time you did that, what happened? Things like that. He's always giving us instructions, but we listen to it or we don't listen to it. So, but the point I was going to make to you, John, is that because Krishna is in the heart, and if a person's sincere and sincerely tries to understand these teachings and follow them, even if he can't perfect himself, what you suggested already comes true, that the soul directs, the super soul directs the soul to a better birth, and he starts off from where he left off in spiritual evolution. But a pure devotee of Krishna means one who was actually surrendered to Krishna and without motivation, without ulterior motivation, without personal aggrandizement.
Even the want to go back to Godhead.
Yes.
And, okay, that's
That
a
is
desire.
the state, yeah, but that's a spiritual desire.
Yeah.
That's not a material
That's
desire.
legit.
Yes.
Okay.
And then Krishna in the heart, when you leave your body, he's there to help you.
Like
One
if
way
I-
or another, one way or
If
another.
I desire, the only reason I'm doing this right now is because I want to go back to Godhead. Is that a selfish desire?
Well, yes and no. An absolutely pure devotee doesn't think like that. The absolutely pure devotee thinks, Lord, let me do something for you.
For you, okay.
You've given me this body, you've given me all this energy, you've given me all these opportunities, life after life. Let me do some payback here. Let me give to you. So that's a pure devotee, one who's doing for Krishna's pleasure, and Krishna so much appreciates that, even a little bit of that he takes care. Because what can we do? What can we do? What is our capacity to change, the world or change even our destiny? We don't have that power. We don't have that power. But Krishna, he has that power. Therefore, there's a verse in the Srimad Bhagavatam, very nice verse. It says, Akama sarva kamo va, moksha karma udaradi, tivrina bhakti yogina, yajeta paramvija. It means whether you are full of desire, or you have no desire, or if you're hankering to have no desire, you should serve Krishna tivrina, intensely. Tivrina means strong. Tivra means strong. You should strongly try to serve Krishna. Because he's the source, he's the one that's giving us everything anyway. So it's true that the degree of realization that you've attained will reveal to you how true that is. It's not that it's automatic. It's not, okay, I've read the book, I've memorized these verses, I can repeat it back to you, and therefore that's it. It's not like that in academic education. It depends on sincere, attempt at understanding, a sincere attempt to apply the principles into our character. And then, when Krishna sees that, he sees that sincerity, he sees us trying, and we're praying, even at the time of death, I'm not ready, but whatever you say, and you've actually served your whole life, or a good part of your life, then Krishna will help you, without a shadow of a doubt, because he is the best friend. Suridam. What kind of friend will go with you wherever you go? In whatever situation you get yourself into, what kind of friend will be there for you anytime, all the time, everywhere? So, actually, no friend is capable of doing that. What to speak, even if they wanted to do that, they couldn't. Even you have a partner or a lover or a friend that's just the best friend you've ever had, when you go, he can't follow you, and but Krishna can. Therefore, he's called Suridam. Su means good, Rit means heart. Suridam, a real friend is one whose heart is with you no matter what happens to you, no matter what the thing happens. There's a nice verse in the Chaitanya Charitamrita that says that when there is a dispute between friends or persons who love one another, and there's a good reason to leave, and the person doesn't leave, that's love. That's one of the symptoms of love. So Krishna, he's beyond being loyal or beyond being, dependable, reliable. He's there all the time. Never lets you down, never. It's we who are turning our backs on him. As soon as we actually face him, chant his name, approach with affection and love, and think of him with love, that's all he wants. He's not asking you for you to be a king or some great saintly rishi or something. He just wants you to think of him in love. That's all. But in order to think of him in love, you have to know something about him. And that's the purpose of these books, the purpose of the chanting, purify our hearts so that we can remember, so that we can be inclined. So it's a spiritual science. It's not a material science. It's a spiritual science. There are things that you can do. There are results that you can get. They're measurable within yourself and also within groups of people who follow them. They're symptoms that are measurable and consistent in persons who are actually fully Krishna conscious. Hare Krishna. Anything else?
I just wanted to make the comment.
Yes, Kalpataru.
That I like in one of the purports Srila Prabhupada had described that how, enjoying bird and witnessing bird, and all enjoying bird has to do is turn towards the witnessing bird and say you are the master, and all the anxieties will go away.
Yes, immediately. Yes. Not such an easy thing to do, but it is easy. We're the ones that make it hard. Krishna's making it easy. We make it hard. All right, I'm already over. Wait, one more from the local saint. Comment.
I was commenting about dying and things like that. If you turn towards Krishna while you're dying, you haven't turned towards him so fully while you're living. Still, you're fortunate enough to turn towards him while you're dying.
Krishna takes you back home. If you think of him when you're dying, he'll take you back home.
That gives hope.
Hope against hope. There's always hope. Krishna consciousness. Okay, we'll stop here. Thank you very much, all of you out in cyberspace, for staying with us in this ride through the Bhagavad-gita. The basic spiritual instructions that all of us need to apply, assimilate into our character and our thinking in order to actually be secure in this material world and be actually happy. Hare Krishna. Srila Bhagavad-gita ki jai. Jai Shri Krishna ki jai. Shri Arjuna ki jai. Gaur Premanandi. Hari Hari Bol. Hare Krishna.